everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are finishing 2023 and starting 2024 with Blue Lock, and it felt like cause for a celebration, right? Also, I'm terrified. I'm terrified what could happen in this episode because I think they're going to win. I think that Naruhaya and Barou are going to lose and it's going to be Isagi and Nagi, but what if it doesn't happen? This show is getting me conditioned to be like, maybe they will lose and then what are we going to do, right? So if that ends up being the case, then who are they going to pick? Well, it's not going to be Isagi. So that makes me, the moment Naruhaya said that it wasn't going to be Isagi that they picked, I'm like, okay, well then Naruhaya is probably going to lose. Because Isagi, you don't say that to our protagonist, you know. I don't know though. What if I've gotten this whole thing wrong and Isagi loses and then he joins one other player and then they have to fight their way back up? What happens then? So, you know, I'm terrified. So Romania Black's having a little bit of a celebratory beverage to gear up for this episode of Blue Lock. This may be a very terrible, bad idea because Romania Black's tolerance level has gone down a lot in these last few months because she hasn't drank a lot. So this could be a very bad idea. Now hold on there now. Before you go watch the episode of Blue Lock, I couldn't let you go without plugging my favorite sports anime, Ace the Diamond. Yes, just like Blue Lock, Ace the Diamond is filled with lots of prodigies and average Joes as well. Which one's the average Joe? Which one's the prodigy? Well, I'll let you figure that out after the Blue Lock reaction. So whenever you're done with Blue Lock and you need something else to watch that's filled with average Joes and prodigies, just pick up Ace the Diamond. Don't worry, Tree Cow will be back next week. Now, back to the reaction. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So yeah, I'm wearing a shirt that Shimoyama got me for a series called Sarune, but I think it says servant in Japanese, and I feel like I'm a slave to Blue Lock at this point. But we've got some comments that I want to dive into before we start this episode. I'm really excited for this episode, but I'm also terrified from it, so it's a fun time. Truck. We were talking about Reen. These are comments from episode 13. Reen uses the catchphrase Narui, which translates best in English to lukewarm or tepid, as Wim said as well. And he keeps calling the other characters NPCs that are lukewarm. And Truck and Wim were both very upset because Crunchyroll, the English translation, they didn't just consistently translate it wrong, they consistently translated it in multiple wrong phrasings that they were like, they just couldn't pick one word. Like with Barou, the word that he uses gets translated to donkey, which is a weird translation, but at least the show is consistent with calling it donkey. It's not just like they said like half-baked and then they said mediocre, but they couldn't just decide on one word. Like they didn't want to settle on it, which I kind of like lukewarm. I agree with them because lukewarm is kind of, it's like very much like you're not even worth the time. You're just lukewarm water. It's like tap water. It's like, ooh, you're that mediocre. It's like, oh, buddy. He's like, you're not even Evian. You're like Dasani. And it's like, ooh, I'm going to throw some shade against these water companies. But I'm glad that Truck and Wim pointed that out. That was really nice to know. Wim had a very, very long comment, and so I really liked Wim's comment. Episode 13 was one of their favorite episodes. So they explained that the season was split into two cores, which you can kind of guesstimate that. But apparently there were 2 weeks in between core 1 and core 2. I'm like, 2 weeks in between episodes 12 and 13 is a bit rough. That's a bit rough. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I like that. So in any case, Wim talks about how Wim was making some comparisons to Kuroko's basketball. So if you've not watched Kuroko's basketball, you should, along with another series I'm going to talk about in a minute. But if you have watched Kuroko's basketball, there's a character called Midorima. And them and Rin have a lot in common. They have like the little eyelashes that are underneath. They both have like green hair. Their eyes are kind of similar colors, but they're both similar in how they take the sport very seriously. Midorima takes basketball very seriously, and Reen obviously takes soccer very seriously. And they're both very technical players. Like Midorima has this shooting ability that's really like pinpoint accuracy, and it's very similar to Reen when he shot the goal and arched into from the sidelines. So they're very similar, which is fun, which made me think, well, where is, Midorma has Decau, so where's Reen's Decau? Is it supposed to be Bachara? Because I'm still on that Bachara and Isagi train. You leave that harem president alone. I don't know. Reen seems very much a loner. But surely he has somebody or will develop somebody. Don't think it's Ari. It could be Aryu. I could see Aryu getting with Reen. Not Ouchie. Ouchie just needs to have a relationship with a therapist and not a romantic one. And Bachara, I don't know. Bachara seems to be getting along great with Aryu and with Toki so far. That's what everybody was calling him as a nickname. But I could see Bachara trying to crack open the shell that is Reen to get him out of his shell. But whether he's going to meet some resistance to that or not, I don't know. According to the astrological signs, Bachara and Reen should not get along, so we'll see how that goes. Apparently, I like the idea of, everybody was talking about the difference between Barou and Reen, and this was brought up in the Discord, and it was brought up in the comments, and people were like, well, but I like Reen more than Barou, and that's cool. I'm totally about it. I guess to clarify, for me, Barou is definitely more of an open jerk than Reen is, but there's something about what I told people in the comments is that Barou is an asshole. He's an ass, which is ironic because he's calling everybody else donkeys when he's one himself. But he's a genuine asshole. You're like, this is what you see is what you get, right? It's like what you see is what you get. Barou is a jerk, but he's very open about it, and he's kind of like an honest jerk. You're like, he's an asshole, and that's just how he is. And you either like it or you don't. With Reen, there is like some insecurities projecting there. There's something under the surface. There's something else going on. And he's just like being really grumpy about it and being kind of pretentious. And you know what? He's reminding me of the drag queen Fifi O'Hara from season 4 and from All-Star season 2. That's who Reen's reminding me of, is Fifi O'Hara. Especially when he's like, well, to me, this is how it is. And this is just how, And in the words of Alyssa Edwards, who's one of my favorite drag queens, if you're going to be a bowdy bitch, own up to it, but don't be weak sauce. And at least Barou owns up to it, And so, yeah, then Wim talked about the Crunchyroll translation. Isagi, they did note there's a really cool translation thing here, where Isagi was saying that life, referring to career and livelihood, is at stake with the Blue Lock setup. Like, Isagi's entire, career-wise chances of getting into the pro teams is at stake if he doesn't make it past Blue Lock. But Reen, the way that he says life translates directly to his very existence. And I'm like, Reen, can we calm down? Now, unless it turns out that there's some kind of weird stipulation where your brother's going to kill you if you don't get through Blue Lock, are we being dramatic, or is there a reason why we're so dramatic? I don't know. I was like, you're taking Drama King to a whole nother level. Let's calm your tits. Let's calm down for a second. I don't know. I want to be open to liking Reen more. I liked the additional time with him a little bit. Just let me approach Reen like a baby deer with food. If people try to push me towards Reen, I will run to the hills and be like, nope. But if y'all just let me calmly approach him, maybe I'll like Reen a little bit more. But I will say this, I'm not a Reen and Isagi shipper, so you all are fine if you ship them, but I'm just like, leave my harem alone. Leave my harem president with, I want my Bumblebee to stay with Isagi, so no! I'm being stubborn with my ships. And I usually like multi-shipping, but I just don't care for Reen right now. So of course, because I don't care for Reen, I don't want to ship anybody with Reen, so I want him to suffer alone. Joking. I'm joking. This was a terrible idea. As she drinks from it some more. So yes, I'm really excited for this episode to see what happens. I don't know what we're going to expect. I'm assuming they're going to win, but how they're going to win, how they're going to get past Barou, because that's the key thing. It really is going to come down to Isagi versus Naruhaya, because Nagi, or Isagi versus Naruhaya, Nagi and Barou are kind of at a standstill. They're at a stalemate. They've got each other. So it's going to come down to how can Isagi overcome Naruhaya. And I'm like, come on, Isagi. Are you questioning whether you've got Naruhaya or not? That guy wasn't even a threat in Selection 1. Let's be real. So I'm hoping things come together for him. I'm rooting for him, but we'll just have to wait and see, right? So I hope y'all enjoy this episode reaction discussion. I'm ready to dive in, so we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to start episode 15 of Blue Lock, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. There you go, Isagi. You're not an average Joe after all. Yay! Cheers! I was about to say, Isagi getting called an average Joe by Naruhaya, that whole time that conversation was going on, I'm like, but you're not an average Joe. You have shown time and time again in this series that you do some freaking amazing things at the turn of a dime. An average person does not do that. So no, I am all about Isagi being the genius of adaptability. That is awesome. The genius of adaptability. And I really like the way that this episode kind of phrases it, because it's like, well, what weapon do we know that Isagi has? We know that Isagi has this idea of spatial awareness. We know that he has that ability on the field, and we know that he has his like direct shot that he kind of can fall back on. But I love this idea, the concept that I will tear myself down and rebuild over and over again, and I will devour others' abilities. I kind of like that because it's sort of like mixing, if you're looking at Kuroko's basketball, it's like mixing Kisei with Akashi, which sounds terrifying. It really does, right? If Rin is our Midorima comparison, it's like he's taking the adaptability of either Haizaki or Kisei and combining it with Akashi's spatial awareness. That's terrifying. If Rin is combining Midorima and Kuroko, then Isagi is combining Akashi and Kisei, which is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So yeah, but I love the concept of this, that he is a genius. Yeah, because I don't think your average Joes are necessarily making it this far, right? Unless Rin is not a genius. Rin is Rin the Oikawa of this series? That would make me like him a little bit more. If that turns out to be the case, is Rin the Oikawa? And what I mean by that is Rin the average Joe that just pushed himself to the extreme? Now, I could be wrong, and he could be a genius like all the other ones. But in Haikyuu, for example, Oikawa's character, there are these genius characters. Oikawa is not a genius. He is an average Joe. But he has worked so hard and honed his skills and what he's good at that he's gotten to the point where he can compete with the levels of the geniuses. He's what Naruhaya wanted to do, but Oikawa had the means and the talent to do it. Like, being an average Joe doesn't mean that you're not talented. That's not what it means. But it means that you aren't gifted with this, like, prodigy level of abilities like Isagi, Nagi, and Barou are. Like, you have to work insanely hard. It would be a really fun twist in the story if we find out if Isagi's like, well, you're a genius, Rin, and Rin's like, I'm not. That's why this is life and death. So, actually, you know what? Maybe it's the booze talking. But maybe if we find out that this whole thing is a life and death battle because he's not a genius, and that's just the mindset that he has to be in the whole time to make it work, you know? That would be a nice twist. And I would much prefer that Rin to Rin just being a genius that's being pretentious and being like, well, this is my brother and I'm a... That would be interesting. And if Sai was the genius and Rin was the average Joe that's trying to catch up to him, I would really like that. So fingers crossed. I'm kind of pushing for that storyline with Rin now. You know what? Maybe I'll just go in thinking that's the case. And if I'm proven woefully wrong, then I will just be even more bitter. But... I may have to watch ahead so that y'all ain't spoiling, because I have a feeling that Wim is going to have trouble in the comments section unless people are really kind, because Kuroko's was not kind. Everybody was trying to tell me all about Asahi, and it didn't go over well. So hopefully y'all be nice to Wim. Be nice to Wim and don't let them have to tell me about a bunch of comments. Anyway, I really, really like the idea of this. This is great. So what I wanted to do was bring out, I got sent by Wim, speaking of which, a chart that shows the heights of our main contenders that we've been with. Poor Henri, she's only 5'2". bless her. I'm 5'8". So Naruhaya was 5'6". So Naruhaya was shorter than I am, and that's why they kept calling him Shorty because he's like the shortest male character of Team Z that's playing right now. So Nico and Igarashi are 5'8", so they're the same height as me, which is fun. Then you have Isagi, who's 5'9", and Bachira, who's 5'9". Imagine twinsies. So yeah, so basically right now over here in Rin's team, we're just gonna put them here. We have Bachira, who is 5'9", and then over here in the Tensai team, we'll just put the Tensais here. We have Isagi, who is 5'9". All right. Then you have Chigiri, Imamura, and Okawa are all 5'10". So over here, we're gonna put these in like the Lush, Team Lush. Not because they drink wine or anything, but because they have luscious locks of hair. Kunigami just joins them. So we have Chigiri, which is like an inch taller. That's 5'10" than them. And then Atoshi Sai is 5'11", and Ryosuke is 5'11". Atoshi Sai is like 2 inches shorter than Rin, which is interesting. So I'm guessing he might be the Akashi equivalent that has like all the talent, right? But then you have the twins who are 6 foot, Raichi who's 6 foot, and Aoshi, who is Toki, who has all the existential problems. They are 6 foot. So we're going to put Aoshi here, that they're 6 foot. And then Reo. I'll talk about Reo. Reo, aka the yandere of the group. They are 6'1", and Atoshi Rin is 6'1", and Cone is 6'1". So Atoshi Rin is 6'1", so just a little bit taller. And meanwhile, on the team here, we have Reo, who's 6'1". It's so weird that Reo and Nagi are so much taller than Isagi and Chigiri. That just blows my mind. I haven't seen them stand next to one another, Chigiri and Reo, to see that. But that's so weird, right? And then Zantetsu, Lemon, Barou, and Kunigami are 6'2", which is crazy. So Isagi, we have Barou, who's up here as 6'2", right? And then Kunigami is just a little bit, they're like Team Lusher, they're like a little radio tower. They're just like that, 6'2". Okay, just little tall tower there. And then you have Barou, Kunigami, Lemon. And then you have the tallest ones are Nagi. Well, not the tallest, but the tallest ones up there are Ego 6'3", Nagi is 6'3", and Gin is 6'3". So we have our little radio tower up here where Nagi is 6'3". Still baffling me. He's only an inch taller than Barou, so we'll just make that a little inch. It's not that much. And then the one that's crazy tall is Jujubee, who is like 6'4" or 6'5". Yeah. So yeah, Jujubee is like freaking taller than, like, look at the little radio towers. Isn't that fun? Isn't that great? So we'll talk about it, but Reo has joined up with Kunigami and Chigiri. I'm not surprised because they know him and they all look like a bunch of Starbursts now. Team Starburst, not Team Lush, Team Starburst. Yes, that's who they are. Makes sense. All right. And then we have this team over here. So they just need one more player and they're done. That's going to be the question of who their 5th player is going to be. I don't know. As far as we know, they were trying to form a team of 3. They haven't faced a team yet. So, and these guys have already faced a team immediately. Like, they got there and were quick done. So the question is, are they going to face Chigiri and Reo and Kunigami's team? Or are they going to face them after they get another player? How's that going to work? I'm very curious because if either team loses and they lose a player, then these guys still have a chance to face another team and keep going through, right? The thing is, I don't want their team to face their team because that means somebody's going to get left behind. Somebody's not going to make it through. And the thing of it is, we can go ahead and talk about this. If Chigiri's team faces their team, are they going to try to take Isagi? I don't think they'll want Barou, but will they try to take Isagi back? And will Reo throw a conniption fit and beg for Nagi, or will Rayo go into jaded, jilted X mode and just be like, well, you left me behind, Nagi, so we're taking Isagi and you can catch up to us. So there. Would Rayo do that? Out of spite? I don't know. I don't think so. But that makes it a very hard decision. I think if it was Nagi or Isagi or Barou, they'd pick one of either Nagi or Isagi, but I don't know. I don't know how that would go. And I don't know how that would end up. So I'm going to be curious to see what these teams do next. Who are Isagi and them going to face next now that they have Barou? And then who are these guys going to face to take on the next team? And then that leaves our players. What we don't know is, did Raichi make it through? Did Gin make it through? What about Lemon and Cone? What about Zantetsu? Did he make it through? What about, who else do we have? We have the twin. Did he make it through? What about Imamura, Becky with the good hair? What about Okawa? What about Nico? We don't know. I don't think, no, Okawa didn't make it through. Nico made it past Okawa, but they showed Nico at some point, so we know he makes it at some level to them, but we don't know at what point or in what capacity, but we'll talk about Rayo at the end here with them. But I thought that little height chart was really cute. I liked that. So let's talk about this game. I'm real glad they won. I was worried there for a hot second. I was like, oh, please don't let them lose. Please don't let them lose. And I'm glad that Isagi finally figured things out, because I was getting a bit worried. I was like, Isagi, you are making me panic way more than I need to be panicking right now. You need to calm it the frick down. What are we doing? Because, yeah, Isagi just gets in his own head, and he was convinced, like, Naruhaya was the one telling him he was an average Joe, and I'm like, are you gonna believe Naruhaya? Naruhaya, who didn't play a lick in the last selection. You're gonna listen to him? But what I like about Isagi's character, even though he is a little bit gullible and was really leaning into the average Joe thing when I'm like, you are not an average Joe. The thing that I like about Isagi is that he is so willing to instantly... Isagi is the poster boy for the blue lock system. He is the boy. He is the one. If Ego is Willy Wonka, then Isagi is the Charlie bucket that he has been looking for this entire time. Because Isagi is like, he is just made for this system. He is willing to break himself down and rebuild himself however he needs to get through the blue lock system. And Ego's like, you're the one. Yes. You're the one that I want. Absolutely. I wondered for a hot second, that AI goalie was acting real swift for an AI goalie. Did Ego block the goal because he wanted to see what Isagi did? If it comes out that he had a handle on it, I won't be surprised. Because I'm like, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I feel like, though, Ego had that goalie block the shot so that Isagi could show what his hand was, because Ego was curious. I could be wrong, though. I don't know. It won't surprise me if Ego's been slightly manipulating the system. It won't surprise me at all. But yeah, so Isagi thinks that they're at a stalemate, that he can shoot, but he can't move. And he's trying to figure it all out. He's like, we're opposite Joes with the opposite problems. But, like, that's all psychological warfare, because Naruhaya said in the last episode that he needed to beat those geniuses, Isagi included. So it was all trying to, like, just psychoschematic, like, get him out of the way, right? So, there are some really good shots of Isagi in this episode, like when he's like trying to figure out what to do, and he's like, I need a weapon I can use in a one-on-one situation, and he's like just sitting there, he's like, there's no way it's really sad, because I like the way he looks when he says there's no way I can become the best striker in the world, and I'm like, well, Isagi, you gotta get over that mindset, because if you have that mindset, then no, you're not gonna become the best striker in the world. You gotta get over that. So there is something that is to be said here, is that you have to want it, you have to prove it, and you have to believe that it's possible. But the thing about it is, you have to believe that it's possible first. And I think that is what Isagi struggles with, because he wants it for sure, and he's proving it, but he has to believe it's possible. And he was questioning that this episode, and I was like, you can't be questioning that. The moment you start questioning whether you're worth being there, you're gonna get kicked out. Like, that is a fact. right? And you have to be able to put in the work. I do think that Blue Lock at this point is going to start, it's going to start like sifting out the average Joes because it only wants the geniuses. It only wants the ones that are going to be able to be the cream of the cream of the crop, right? I think that Rin, if he is an average Joe, he's getting through by sheer willpower and because he believes it and he can prove it and he wants it bad enough. Like, it's life or death for him. It's not just whether he becomes a pro player or not. He's like, it's survival. So if that's the case with Rin, then that would make a lot of sense. But I don't think anybody else has that mentality. So I'm like, I don't know. But I did feel bad for Isagi, and I was like, come on, get your mind out of the gutter. And Isagi gets himself down so easily. My favorite thing is that Nagi this whole time never questioned Isagi, never worried about, like, he's like, hey, are you okay? Like, the great thing about Nagi is he reminds me a lot of an Ace of the Diamond character, right? He reminds me a lot of an Ace of the Diamond character named Koshu, who is like this wolf. He reminds me of this Ace of the Diamond character named Koshu, who's like a wolf. And he's like a wolf because he can seem rather cold, but he's not really on the inside. He's actually very concerned for those around him. He just seems kind of aloof. But he is kind of like a dog where he follows the main character around a little bit. And he's like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to do something? That's kind of like Nagi here. But I appreciate Nagi because he absolutely doesn't really question Isagi. He just kind of like goes with the flow and he's like, okay, we can do this. Let's get in the game. Let's go. He's just a great teammate to have. And I didn't think Nagi would be like that. I thought Nagi would be more like Barou, if I'm honest. When we first met Nagi and he was in that cafeteria room and he was just like, oh, losing so hard. Like, what's the deal? I thought he was going to have like an attitude like Rin or Barou, and especially on the field would be kind of like stuck up. No, he's great to work with on the field. He's a wonderful person to work with. He'll do whatever. Barou's the one that's going to be a problem because Barou's kind of an asshole. So, and then Isagi just saying he doesn't want to flunk out like an average Joe. I'm like, you're not an average Joe. And so he tries to every single trick he can think of, and he's trying to think of another way. And he's like, if I don't do this, then the game's just going to continue with the two of them. He's like, I've got to catch up. And he's like, what can I do to change my tactics? And I like the idea that Isagi's like constantly thinking. He's like, what do I do? What do I do there? I'm like a genius would. Quit selling yourself short, Isagi. Don't do that. I do love the puzzle piece, like metaphor that we see with him throughout this episode, like of him breaking apart and re-piecing back together. The visuals are really good. And I really like the visuals of Nagi when he gets really serious and he has like the cosmic glow around his eyes. Like, those are really good, too. I'm going to picture that. But Barou getting mad. Barou's just like, I can't. He's like, we have to make a comeback. And that's when he realizes about the blind spot with Naruhaya, that he's been picking off his blind spots. And I was going to say, while Isagi was breaking this down, I was going to be like, yeah, because that's kind of like Kuroko's basketball where you've got like misdirection, playing with blind spots, people's line of vision. I was about to say something, and that's when he was like, oh, it's like when Rin said that whole thing about eye movement. And I was like, yes, that's it. Rin's done his homework, and that's something else that makes me think that maybe Rin is an average Joe? That maybe because he's done a lot of homework about all this random stuff that, like, Isagi picks it up instantly. But I'm like, did Rin pick it up instantly, or has he been studying? I don't know. I'm really excited about this average Joe theory with Rin. I hope I'm right, but I might not be. But yeah, he instantly, like, puts two and two together and, like, starts to pick it apart. And then he's like, I found the jigsaw puzzles pieces that I needed. I'll shove these pieces in my brain and overwrite my concept of soccer. That's the crazy thing about Isagi. Like, he just puts in a new flash drive. He puts in a new floppy disk in. And he's like, okay, we're going to rewrite over what I just learned and start something new. Like every game, if Isagi can find a way to adapt the concept of adaptability that he has, then every game he could just read his opponents and adapt to what they're doing and find a way to counter it. That would be insane. And I'd be all here for it. So I hope that's how it works out. But yeah. So he like starts to piece himself back together. And I love that he goes on this big tangent about what he's doing, and Nagi's like, are we gonna get a hold of the ball? Are we gonna do anything? He's like, are you listening? And Isagi's like, I'm reconfiguring myself. Nagi. You know what it reminds me of in this moment? Isagi reminds me of Ego, and Nagi reminds me of Henri. Where Nagi's like, hey, should we possibly be doing this? He's like, not now, Pinky. Not now, Nagi. I'm thinking. I don't ship Nagi and Isagi, but if you do, I could see it based on the whole Henri Ego situation and how this kind of mirrors it. I could see that. It's amazing. I love the puzzle pieces just flying around him. It's wonderful. And he's just trying to think of a solution. And I like that he's just like, blind spot, off the ball. Like, it's just, he's thinking of everything, and then the green aura starts to surround him. He's like, I need you to shut up, Tensai. Oh my god, I want to get a shot of that. And I love that Nagi, he's like, I'm about to get to the good part. And I think that, didn't Ego say that at one point? Didn't Ego say, shut up, he's about to get to the good part? Didn't he say that to Henri? I think he did. But Nagi remembers him saying it back in their match, and he's like, oh, that's just your way of saying that we're about to win. I love that's how Nagi interprets it. Nagi's just like, okay, we'll roll with it, you crazy person. It's fine. Nagi is just rolling with Isagi's bizarre insanity is one of my favorite parts of this episode. I love where he's just like, okay, Striker, I'll take that as we're gonna win. I like that Nagi looks so like, okay, that's fine. Glad that we've got that settled. While I love that Isagi is still standing over there thinking up his strategy, and Nagi's like, okay, guess we'll just run with this. So then we get sudden backstory. And the moment we got sudden backstory, I was like, well, Naruhaya's team's gonna lose. But damn, y'all. Naruhaya's backstory is really sad. It's the kind of sad character backstory in a sports anime that would usually happen to a character before they win. So I like the subversion of it, that no, this is the team, this is the person that's going to lose and get disqualified, is the person whose parents died in a freak accident 2 years ago, and now he has like 4 other siblings or 5 other siblings that he's taking care of. So his older sister, he's the second oldest. His older sister and him have 4 younger siblings. I do appreciate that all the siblings look different. I do appreciate that because, like, in a lot of anime, like, the siblings look like cardboard cookie cutters of each other, and you're just like, oh. But here, they not only have different hair color, skin color, eye color, they all look drastically different. But then you see a picture of the parents, and they're all somehow like a mix of each parent. So in a different way, it just looks like you played The Sims 2 and kept picking random, and you did it 5 times or 6 times, and that's how you got all of them. But yeah, Naruhaya and his sister look the most similar, which Naruhaya's sister kind of looks like Imamura a little bit. But yeah, all the siblings look similar and different. And you see, I love in this moment, there's all these little things. Like, you can tell that Naruhaya made the meal because he has the apron on, and he has the apron on to eat because he has a nice shirt and like his school uniform on underneath it. Then you have, like, they just made dumplings for everybody and rice. It's very basic. Like, the room has just simple stuff in it, like stuff that would be in a kid's room. It's minimally decorated, but there's like flowers for the parents and everything. And he's like, they're free dumplings that sis brought home from work. So he didn't even cook them. They're just free dumplings that the sister got from work. And then the one brother, what was really sad is the one brother's like, oh, I'll make a lot of money with cryptocurrency when I grow up and escape this life. And the other sister's like, I'm going to marry rich. It was really sad because it's like, it's not that their home life sucks because they have each other, but it's just they don't have any money and they're poor because they're just barely making ends meet. There's 6 of them and they don't have either of their parents. That's really sad. And it says it's been 2 years since their parents passed. Like, either they moved into this apartment after the parents passed because they couldn't afford the house anymore, or it wasn't they didn't have a lot of money to begin with, and then after the parents died, they really didn't have a lot of money, so it's all kind of gone downhill. But I felt bad when the brother said that, like he just wants to leave. That's really sad. And then, yeah, and then the other sister says that she's going to be a bride and says she hates being poor. And Naruhaya is like, well, he's like, when the going gets tough, smile and the bad luck disappears on its own. And he just makes a joke to get them all, yeah. And they all smile so that the bad luck goes away. And you see, like, it's just bare bones in that house. And there's, like, nothing else there. And then you see the picture of the two parents. Oh, that's so sad. That's so sad. And then, like, him and his sister, he's like, I'm going to become a pro player and make lots of money to give you a life of luxury. And he's like a paper boy and stuff. And then I can protect everyone. But the thing about it is, one thing about Blue Lock and one of the themes of it is that you shouldn't be doing things for other people. Like, that's kind of that you need to find a way to stand on your own. So that's one of the themes, is don't do it for others. Do it for you. And it's not that Naruhaya wants to become a pro player for himself. He's doing it for his family. But like his family said, like, they'll make ends meet. They'll be able to do it. They'll all find something to do. And it's like, should you be trying to do this? What are the reasons you're doing this for? And are you doing this for the right reasons? And even though what Naruhaya is doing is very noble and it's sweet and you understand it, is he doing Blue Lock for the right reasons? I think Ego would say no. And so that's why he doesn't get to advance. And that kind of sucks in a way, because he's trying to help out his poor family, but then it's like, that's not what Blue Lock's about. That's not how this works. But in a way too, him learning and losing to Isagi and them, and now he has to go back and find something else to do, find another job or find another way. Maybe that's how it was meant to be. I thought for a second he was going to give Isagi the good luck charm that his siblings made for him. I thought for a hot second he was going to hand it to him, but I think he knows he's not going to need it. Right? That was just, I can't believe I thought that Geen gave that to him. Last episode, I'm like, did Geen give it to him? No, it was his family that's broke and orphaned, you know. Man. So, yeah, that's the backstory, and then we cut back to the present. And I like that Nagi's already anticipating Barou and what he's doing. And Naruhaya tried to give some advice to Barou, but that didn't go over well. Barou's going to be a peach. He's going to be great to work with. He's going to be the best. He's so full of himself. And I'm like, Barou, dude. Barou has some stuff to prove, right? He is just, oh my God, he's an asshole. But it's like, lay down and die, you lowly plebs. I'm like, oh my God. And Isagi's like, what the hell is going on? And then I swear, that AI blocking that goal, I swear that was Ego. There is no way that was just the random AI. They wanted to see what Isagi would do. And, the face that Barou makes when Naruhaya takes the kick, it's a face of, oh my God, you're kidding. He took the kick, but he didn't have the talent to make it go through. And I'm glad Naruhaya told Isagi that he's a genius. He's like, there is no way you could pick up my move in 30 seconds and master it. There's no way. You can't do that and be an average Joe. No chance. You're a genius. You just don't know it yet. And I need to tell you. And so then, yeah, he manages to get around Barou, gets around his blind spot, and then makes it work. And Nagi, I love when he says, I see you, Striker. I love Nagi saying that. It's great. And yeah, and then him rushing past Barou, saying, I will beat Barou one-on-one. Oh, and this goes back when they were facing each other in the early part of the season. And Barou's like, well, you're talentless. How do you think you can get past me? You don't have any skills. And maybe he is like Kisei. And he's like, you know what? Maybe I don't have any, mad skills of my own, but I'll adapt from yours. And then what? It's like, I love it. I love that he gains the aura that looks like Naruhaya's, and then he turns it back to his own. And he's like, now I'm going to go from just emulating to also using my own skill and my new self. And then boom, there we go. Yeah, and the AI didn't stop at that time. Into the territory of geniuses. And Naruhaya's like, yeah, it took him a split second to take my skill and devour it. I love it. I love the idea of him, like, he's not copying skills. He's not stealing them. He's devouring them. Love it. And I love that him and Nagi, like, crush hands. Are like, yeah. Nagi's like, whoa, you're loud. But Naruhaya's like, if I had only made the shot. And Isagi's like, it just didn't work out. And he tries to be nice to Naruhaya. And Naruhaya's like, don't even try. Don't take pity on me. He's like, no. He's like, you can rebuild yourself anew and become the best version of yourself. He's like, that's where the gap in our talent lies. And Isagi thanks him, and he's like, no, don't be all soft and thanking me. That's not going to work in this world. He's like, that ain't going to cover it. You need to get stronger. And, oh no, it crashed. I got to go back to the episode. He's like, you're a genius of adaptability. Love it. So they end up picking Barou. Of course they do. And Barou at first, like, almost, he, like, goes to Barou and says, this isn't where you bow out. And I like that for a second, Barou was just like, you picked me? But then instantly, no. He's just pissed. He's just like, ugh. Because for a second you think that Barou's kind of humbled by being picked by them. But no, he's just mad. He's mad because they lost. And Isagi tries to, like, say, hey, former teammate, sorry. But he's like, no, I got it. If you're soft and naive, you won't last long in this place. And so then he's like, this is where my dream ends. And some dreams don't come true. And he tells Isagi to keep winning till the day he dies. And says, bye, geniuses. So Naruhaya is disqualified. He's our first official Team Z member kicked out. Sad days. Poor Naruhaya didn't make it past the second selection. So, meanwhile, we have Chigiri and Kunigami who ask Reo to be their final player. And Reo, of course, is sulking. And I like that Chigiri cuts right to the chase. He's like, oh yeah, did your pet Nagi leave you? And Reo's like, what did you say? But Kunigami's like, hey, we're in the same boat. Bachira and Isagi took off without us. So, want to join up with us? Get some revenge? Eh? And Reo's like, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I do like that we get a post-credit scene and the additional time. I like the ED. I don't know what to make of the ED. I don't want to know because we don't see Jujubee or Toki there at all, but we see Reo and we see all of the members of Team Z, so I don't know what to make with that ED. We'll find out later. But I like that Isagi is instantly the person trying to break up the fight between Barou and Nagi. And the thing is, Barou's like all standing tall like he's the tallest. Nagi is an inch taller than him. And he makes the argument. He's like, well, I can't fit in these bunk beds. I need the tall bed. But I'm like, sir, Nagi is an inch taller than you. He technically should have the bed. You just need to get over yourself. And I'm like, why don't you sit on the top bunk, Barou? Quit being a bitch. And then Nagi's like, now hold on a moment. He's like, you want to go? I'm like, Barou's going to be the worst to deal with. And Nagi's like I said, I want to sleep on the bed. I like that Nagi's kind of hunched over to look shorter in that moment. It's like a fierce battle over a bed. It is such a bitch move to give them just a bed and the bunk beds, and the one bed is clearly better than the others. And Isagi's like, well, I'd like to sleep on that bed too. And Barou's like, well, this bunk bed's too small, and it shakes when the guy on the top bunk's turns over, so I don't like it. He's like, so I'm taking this single bed. And then Nagi's like thinking rationally, being like, well, let's just do rock, paper, scissors since we can't decide. He's like, who says you get to pick first anyway? And I love Barou says, I am the rule. I am the hype. What? And he's like, you lost, so stop barking and perish, former king. I love it. It's hilarious. And he's like, individually, I didn't lose. And my rule is absolute. Oh my God. That's what it means to live with me. Isagi's like, we've made a horrible mistake. I love that Isagi and Nagi and Chigiri and Kunigami are the sane ones on their team, and Barou and Reo are batshit crazy, right? Also hearing Almine's voice actor say, my rule is absolute, which is an Akashi line, is like blowing my mind. I'm going to go back and listen to it and be like, what is this? And Isagi's like, maybe I misjudged what it meant to have two geniuses as teammates. As he gets knocked, as he's like, hi, my name's Isagi. You might be wondering how I got in this situation. As he's like knocked aside by the pillow. At least it's not like Rayo. Rayo is not only having like a meltdown, but he's also stripping their toothbrushes. So they're going to have bad breath and bad teeth. And he's been there 30 minutes. Their toothbrushes are gone. And I love that he's just like sitting there being like, Nagi's coming back. Nagi's not coming back. Nagi's coming back. Like, I love they call him the maiden. I'm like, oh my God. And then he's like, when he comes back, I'll be cold to Nagi. Who says I'm going to be the same when you come back around? Kunigami, of course, that has sisters, is like, oh my God, he's just a jilted ex. Get out of there! Chiguru's like, leave him alone. We should turn in Kunigami. Just let him be. Oh my God. He's like, hang in there. I like that. Yeah, Kunigami's like, hang in there, Rio. It's okay. When he comes back, I'll be cold to Nagi. Or I won't be cold to Nagi. I'm like, oh, honey. The thing about it is, I wish that Rayo knew that Nagi misses him. I wish he knew, but he doesn't. It's like, oh no. Buddy. Oh my gosh. So yeah, no big deal. It's fine. I am genuinely curious about who they're going to face next. I'm curious who they're going to face. Are they going to face each other right off the bat? I don't know. Who's going to be their fifth player? Don't know. But I'm very, very curious. So there's that. In any case, though, I am so glad Isagi and them won. I'm glad he has identified himself as a genius. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Naruhaya, Tears Man, you're probably not the first to be of the fallen. There's probably be more behind you, but we'll just have to wait and see. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with more of Blue Lock.